All right, so let's talk about practical implementation and cost. To be honest, that's a big part of it. Whether manufacturers can jump on this bandwagon now and how it makes sense to them, understanding the cost and how to allocate it is really important. Can we talk a little bit about those use cases and how you see the right way of understanding what the cost and the ROI is of implementing AI?
I think it's a great question. I think we have an opportunity for a fundamental shift how we think about IT costs in manufacturing, right? Today I talk to customers and say, you know what, I need to spend some money to get my foundation at the right level, and then I can figure out what the use cases are. The use cases are going to bring the ROI. But I like people to think about it in a different way. If you're making, whatever you're making, let's assume that you're going to use AI to oversee a process. Those cloud consumption costs now become part of cost of goods sold. Yeah. There's no reason why you can't take those costs and say, you know what, this is going to add 1 cent per unit to my product. It's just the cost of doing business, no pun intended, and really drive the conversation that way, right? Because I think one of the things that holds us back is the idea that our cost standard systems rely on using the asset. It relies on transferring costs based on units, and sometimes we think that anything related to IT is an overhead that we have to justify, and it's hard to justify.
Yeah.
I think we do reverse that or change that equation by saying it's not an overhead. It's actually the cost of making the product, and the conversation changes dramatically.
It does, and I've seen this with problems with plant managers being able to get budget for maintenance and upgrades and things, for instance, because just the kind of split between the way IT budgets and the way OT budgets, and I think we've really changed how we manufacture, and I think the way we look at the finances has to change as well, so that we can actually incorporate, because the OT and IT worlds are converging, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And there are differences, right, in how you look at it from a business standpoint.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that ultimately we have to think about this as something that's going to be continuously running in your manufacturing floor. I tell customers today that within 5 years, you're going to have 25 to 30 ML models running in any given plant.
Yeah.
And we're going to go from, we're very focused on use case identification and development now, but 5 years from now, it's going to be about governance and oversight, right? So if you think of it that way, then you say, okay, well, this is just the cost of doing business and running my plant, and therefore I should be thinking of it that way in terms of how it's accounted for overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And then order of operations. I know we've talked about use cases, right? Tackling a use case that a problem you've already had, something that you've been trying to solve. But I like this. There are building blocks, right? And depending on where you are in your maturity,
right, you
need to start in the right place. You don't just jump immediately into trying to have an AI model, find opportunities for you. How do you think about how customers or manufacturers should plan what use cases to tackle? And is there a sequence that matters there, or do you just go for your biggest problem first?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think as manufacturers, we tend to be very focused on execution, which is we have an idea, let's go learn and do it. But I think you have to take a step back and think about this in a couple of ways. One is get a list of use cases together, i.e. a backlog, right? And really prioritize them based on the level of effort in terms of how much work it takes to get there, and the value it brings back to the business. If you prioritize it or matrix them that way, 2 by 2, then you got a better sense of what you have out there. It's important to have multiple use cases and look at them at the same time, or at once, I should say, because the sequence matters, right? You may have a use case that is your #1 priority in terms of value, but it may make sense to do number 5, 6, and 7 in value just to be able to get to #1 faster, right? So having a holistic view of everything you're thinking about doing, and this is a living document, so you're constantly taking away from that backlog based on business changes and adding to that backlog as things progress also, right? So that's a key differentiator. You have to think about this not as an individual project that you're going to go after. Think of it as a living process and transformation that you're constantly adjusting based on what's happening around you in the plant.
Wow, that's a really good way of putting it. Well, as much as I would love to ask you 10 more questions, we're almost out of time. So I'll wrap it up with this. Can you tell us just briefly what we can expect to see from you or Google forward that we should be paying attention to as we say goodbye here in our limited time in the Creators Lounge?
Well, thanks. But Google Cloud is a data and AI company, and we see tremendous opportunity for continued growth in AI. Our goal is to figure out how to use our expertise in that area and make it applicable to manufacturers. Make it easy to use. We want you to use these tools with the people you have, not the people you have to hire.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's our focus. We're going to build on what we have already and look forward to doing that.
All right. Well, I recommend everybody find Luis, connect with him on LinkedIn, go to the Google booth to talk to them about this. And thank you so much for joining me in the Creators Lounge.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more amazing interviews all of today with my fellow creators. Thank you, guys. Bye.